Hello, this is Coach Tim Kamsel, and I'm your host for the Self-Made is a Myth, Make a Difference Together show, where we're talking with successful business owners to hear their story of the journey to building their business. And because we know that no one achieves success on their own, that we are recognizing folks who have come alongside of us and helped us on our business journey. Today, I'm excited to have a fellow business owner from the Indianapolis area with us. My guest has a large horseshoe scar on his head from having his head crushed when he was 5 from playing baseball in his backyard. So we're going to want to hear more about that. He enjoys spending time outdoors and is most proud of the consistent growth of his business. 4 times IBJ, fastest growing company in Indiana, and working towards a 5 repeat. Please join me in welcoming Kevin to the show today.
Thanks for having me on, Tim.
Awesome, Kevin. Well, let's start with having you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit of your backstory, your personal story, where you were born, where you live, about your family, and definitely we want to hear about that baseball scar.
Yeah, well, so born and raised all over the place. My dad was military, so he was in the Air Force, moved around a lot. Was born in England, spent a lot of time in northern Maine, which was a lot of fun. And so moved around, and it really just kind of helped set my groundings as a person, just getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, if you will, moving into different school systems and all that. So good experiences that. I have 3 older brothers. We're all very close in age. We're all very competitive, and that's probably how I ended up getting hit with a baseball bat, is playing out in the backyard with my brothers and some neighbor kids, and everybody's running around and got a little too close, and somebody swung around and unfortunately happened to be the biggest kid there and just hit me in the side of the head and just knocked me out. And so bad experience, but obviously I made it through. So teaches, my wife calls me safety dad, and there's a reason for that, because I know what can go wrong when you're a small child and you're not paying attention.
Yes.
So backstory, I'm one of 4 boys. Grew up with a healthy family of just a lot of love, not a lot of elsewise, and just really just trying to figure out. You talk about grinding, but my dad instilled the work ethic in me more than anything, but also just a sense of being grateful for what we have, and I think that's really just what resonates with me is work really hard, be grateful, try and help others, and that's really just how I was raised, and so. Played a lot of sports growing up, played small college basketball, Wabash College. They actually just went to the D3 Final Four, which was exciting. Didn't take home the hardware, but it was a really fun ride. So played sports a lot, which again, just a lot of lessons instilled, and just playing sports and being a part of a team and recognizing how important roles are. For everybody involved to be successful. So, a lot of different things and a lot of different people have impacted my life. And so that's why, really enjoy being on here, because couldn't agree more that, no one is self-made, and it takes everyone. They say it takes a village to raise a child, but I also think it takes a village and a lot of support to grow a successful business as well.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about your family.
Yeah. So family, I have 3 boys. They're all crazy and they're all busy. My wife, she is an entrepreneur as well. She owns a coffee shop in Speedway, Indiana. And so, just a lot of fun, a lot of activity, and, just trying to make it through, really.
Fantastic. And what's all their names?
So my oldest son is Christian. And then I have a middle son named Penn, and my youngest son is named Rome. My wife is named Sierra.
Fantastic. Awesome. So tell us about how the business came about. How at what point did you know that, or feel like you had the confidence to go out on your own and start your own business?
For me, it's been an interesting story. So, I started off, undergrad, graduated, works in tech, telecom for a number of years. And then I went back, got my MBA. And after I got my MBA from Indiana University, I started working for a retail optical chain, and family-owned business, second generation owner. His dad had started the business. And so I worked there for a little while. And I think it was interesting because when I first started working there, I had a number of different roles. And after being there maybe a year, it just all of a sudden kind of hit me like, I can run this operation. I feel confident that, I'm not there yet. Obviously it's going to take me a lot to do it. And the owner had to have the trust in me to give me that responsibility. But, that just, I think just jumping in and doing it and having some experiences and all the experiences in my life that led me to that point, I felt, I think I can do this. And I got the opportunity. That opportunity is not my current business, but it made me recognize I really want to be, an owner of a business at some point. And so being involved with that business and running that business, and I really, I tried to actually buy into that business, and I get it, family owned business. It was like, hey, we're not interested in having a non-family member as an owner, and so no harm, no foul. I still have a good relationship with them, but it just made me recognize that I really wanted to have some ownership in a business, and so I wasn't even really looking. But I think at that point, one of my friends had reached out to me and said, hey, here's another company that you should look at. Young, aggressive owner. Just they're doing some things in healthcare that you should take a look at. And so I started talking to that group. And as I was talking to the president of the company at the time, he was a partner with a number of other people. Company was headquartered out in Salt Lake. And there was just a different strategic direction that he wanted to take the business. And so as he and I were talking, and he knew, hey, I want to have some ownership in a business. I'm not interested in making a move unless I can, buy in or start my own thing. And it just became apparent that, hey, we have an opportunity here. So really what we ended up doing was we split that company in half. The other owners kept the other side of the business. He ended up buying them out of that business. And then we ended up, bringing a handful of partners in. And so we split that company in two. And it was an interesting kind of journey because, we're at the time we split it, we had some sales. We had about 8 locations in the Midwest, but we were starting over from everything else. There was no corporate office, there was no infrastructure, and so we're starting over, and we're building this plane while it's in the air. And you're like, okay, we need IT, we need accounting, we need back office, we needed a corporate office. We were working out of a small regional office that we're busting out of, and so it was really an opportunity for me, and it was a risky move because there was no guarantee that this would work. It was a big risk, but it was such an exciting opportunity, and I knew that was something that I wanted to take the risk on. And the business partner that he's still my partner today, he's the CEO of our organization. I saw that he trusted in me and was willing to allow me to be a part of that business. And so it's been an interesting journey. That was about 11 years ago. And, we took several years just really building the foundation. And so, probably the first 3, 4, 5 years, it was build the foundation and figure out what it is that we're going to do. How do we make this a profitable, successful business? And then really over the last 5 years, we've grown at an average of 30% a year, every single year. Awesome. And we've developed really a structure and a model that we've got a good, consistent growth. We're privately held. We've brought on a few other partners over the time, and we're just continuing to grow the business. We've also purchased a couple other businesses over time that all fit within kind of what we're trying to do. And, our mission with all of our businesses is to improve lives. And, it's improve lives of whether it's, patients on the healthcare side. We have a real estate entity and improving lives of the people that are going to, work with us from a real estate standpoint, but ultimately also just improving the lives of our employees. And we're very passionate about that. And so I feel very grateful for one to have found the people that I really enjoy working with, but I'm also just the right opportunity and the right fit for me. And so it's been a great journey. I'm not done yet. I know I got a lot of gray in my beard, but I'm still pretty young. And so we got a lot of time to go yet. But thankfully, I've really just found a good group of people to work with and a great opportunity. And we're just trying to figure out how do we continue to grow and build a great company or great companies.
Yeah. Well, tell us, Kevin, a little bit more about, let's talk specifically Rehab Medical, and then you can explain the other sister companies as well. So tell us what you guys do, how I know you mentioned your mission to improve lives, but tell us more specifically, how do you guys do that?
Yeah, so Rehab Medical is a complex rehab technology company. And really what that means is most of the patients that we take care of have either a spinal cord injury or a, ALS, MS, some sort of, what's called a group 3 diagnosis. And really our job is to make sure that these patients can get equipment and have some level of independence in their home. Getting anybody who's dealt with insurance knows that this is a very difficult, frustrating process. And for this process, you're dealing with, you got to have a doctor involved and obviously the patient, and then you've got to have a physical therapist. And then we have a specialty position called an ATP that's involved in the process. And then you have caregivers, and then you have the insurance company. And so there's all these different components that are involved. And honestly, if a patient had to try and get a piece of equipment on their own, it would take them forever, and they would give up. And so what we really do is we navigate that process. We're kind of the quarterback, making sure that everything happens within the right steps, and we make sure the documentation is there and everything's covered. Deliver the equipment, assess the equipment, make sure that it's set up the right way, make sure that it's aligned for the patient's needs. And so what we really do is just navigate that process and make sure that we can get equipment to patients that have a need for it. So again, whether it's, if they're a spinal cord injury patient, they now have a piece of equipment that they can continue to live, their life and have some independence, go to school, go to work, whatever it is. And then if it's a patient that has, a group 3 diagnosis and they're truly in their home, at least they're not bedbound. They have some independence, they can get around their house, or it keeps them out of a facility, which is a lot more costly to the healthcare system. So that's a lot of what we do. And we've recognized that there's a heavy need. And so we're in 16 states right now. Our goal is to get into all 50. And we want to continue to grow. And really our growth mindset is built around taking care of more patients. We feel like we're really good at what we do. And if we grow, we'll continue to take care of more patients. If we grow, we also continue to create opportunities for employees, so hiring more, promotions. One of the things that I'm probably most proud of is we had 41 promotions as a company last year.
Oh, wow.
That's 41 people that their life got better because they, took on more responsibility, got paid more, better title. They're growing and developing as individuals within our organization. And so those are the things that I get really excited about from a business standpoint.
It's a relatively unique mindset in terms of putting employees first. A lot of organizations have shifted over the years from an employee mindset to a bottom line mindset. So tell us a little bit more about why and how is that important to you guys?
Yeah, it's really important. If you take care of the employees, they'll take care of the business, and they'll take care of our patients. And we're getting big enough that you can't have one or two people do it. It takes an entire team, and that's one thing that we recognize and we focus on heavily is what's the right structure for the business to make sure that we're sustainable, and how do we make sure that we're focusing on our employees, because again, they're going to be the ones that take care of the business. And so we really focus on longevity and development and our employees to make sure that, hey, if they have choice. And right now they got a lot of choice because, unemployment's at record lows and people are leaving. And so, that's why we really focus on improving their lives through whether it's development or opportunities or whatever it is that we can provide, because we know that they can go somewhere else. If they're not improving their life and their life isn't better by working with us, they're going to go somewhere else, and they should. And so, for us, we also know that we've got a really aggressive, goal as an organization. The only way we get there is with all of our people, and they've got to be aligned, and they've got to work together and stay, right. And that stay part is important for us because, we recognize that, longevity leads to trust. And that's where, one of the things that we've got is we've got a leadership team that's been together for, over a decade. And we know what each other is going to do, and we know there's trust. And I know that this person's going to do this and they're going to do their role, and I'm going to play my role. And, there's no ego in there. It's, hey, we're working together to build this organization. And it goes throughout the whole organization. It's not just leadership that has to stay. We need everybody to stay. Right. Because the longer they stay, the better they're going to get, the better we're going to take care of our patients. I mean, it's a cycle, and we know how important that is to the business. And that's really where we spend a lot of our time focusing.
I love that perspective. We talk a lot about that in the clients that I interact with is, if you've got a great culture that's going to attract awesome people, and then you set them up for success, then everything else follows from that. And so I just love your perspective. You guys I've got it right, and like I said earlier, it's not the norm. So you guys should feel very proud of the unique culture that you guys are setting up. So good for you.
Thank you.
Hey, Kevin, tell us a story where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it, and what was the impact that person had on your success?
Yeah, I think about when I was in college. I had a really good friend of mine, and he was a very entrepreneurial mindset. He was always, he was the guy that was like selling T-shirts, and he was, what during the race we go down and sell earplugs, and he just always looking for something to do. And I was it was never like my default mode to say, hey, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to go try this stuff. And he just was always pushing me, and he would never let me say no, right? Like he was the kind of guy that's like, no, we're going, and he's a lot bigger than me too. So he's like, hey, we're going, and he always pushed me. And what I learned from him was that, don't focus on your fears. Don't focus on what could go wrong. It's, the first step is the first step. Just do it. Right. And just, and it's, when you're building a house, right, you just lay another brick. And I think that's where, he really instilled that in me and pushed me in a way that, when I was, 20, 21, 22 years old, I was not comfortable doing those things. And he's truly the individual that just forced me to do it. And I think sometimes you need to have that in your life. And if you think about, if you have someone who's pushing you, it's not going to take no for an answer. Sometimes that's a really good thing. And that's what I needed personally in my life at that time. And so he's just an individual that really helped me along that path.
That's awesome. There's a saying that everything that we want out of life and in our business is on the other side of our comfort zone. Right?
Yeah.
So having that ability to push you outside of it is fantastic. What's his name?
His name is Jeff Faber.
Awesome. Kevin, what's the biggest learning that you've had as a business owner over the years?
We probably don't have enough time to talk about all of the learnings and all the mistakes. I think the biggest learning and the most important takeaway as a business owner is truly that you have to schedule time to focus on the business. It's so easy to just day to day and operational and just go. And you have to schedule time to step away and focus on the business and make sure that you're mapping out, where are we going? What are our plans? How are we going to get there? Who's important in that role? And I think with that, I think it's really important. You can't do that in a vacuum. One of the things that we've gotten really good at is regimenting into, our annual focus on where we're going this next year. How are we going to get there? We go off site, we spend, a couple of days really spending a lot of time on that. And then quarterly, we come back to it. First quarter, we come back and we say, hey, where are we at with those plans? Let's update, let's make sure we hold each other accountable. I think that's something that we've done a really good job of that I think is super important is, hey, you said you were going to do this. Did you do it? Because nobody wants to show up to that meeting and say, hey, I didn't get my job. Right. Nobody wants to be that person. Yeah. And so we literally, we schedule these meetings and we set target and to-do lists for every single employee on the executive staff. And then we come back and say, did you get it done? And if you didn't, set a new date. There's no excuses. There's no anything. It's like, did you get it done? Yes or no. If I didn't get it done, what's my new deadline? Yes. Right. And then focus it. And then 3 months later, we're going to do the same thing. And then, so every 6 months, we have a full day meeting at least where we go through and, some things change. And so we tweak it, but then every 3 months in between, it's really just a catch up to make sure we hold ourselves accountable. And so I think that's something that has been really important for us that I don't think we'd be where we are if it weren't for that approach. And just, it has to be intentional and it has to be targeted. You got to step away. You got to work on the business and really analyze it. Cause you get too busy in the day to day that if you don't step aside, you never stop and really look at the important things in the business. And so I would say, and I don't even think it matters what size business, I mentioned my wife runs a coffee shop, same approach. You got to step aside. You got to look at it. Hey, where are we at? What are we doing? What are our numbers? Obviously understanding financials is important, but the financials tell you where you have problems so you can go hunt them down and make decisions. But if you don't step back, I think you're just not going to be as successful as you can be. Doesn't mean you can't be successful. I just think for me, that's one thing that I've learned that, it's intentional. It's set aside the time, get a group of people that are going to hold you accountable and hold each other accountable. I hear this quote one time and I think it just really resonates with me, but it's, play long-term games with long-term people. And that's really important for us because that's what we're trying to do is build a great company long-term. And you got to have people that have the same mindset that are going to hold you accountable for that. So I'd say that's the most important thing that I've learned over the last decade running a business.
I love the idea of stepping out of the day-to-day because if we allow it to, the business will eat every waking hour we have, right?
That's right.
And so a lot of folks will say, well, I just can't find the time. Like, well, you have to prioritize it, right? You absolutely have, to your point, you have to find the time to work on the business. Now, if we just leave it to chance, then we're just going to be fighting fires all the time, as opposed to working towards our long-term goal. And our subconscious is incredibly powerful, right? When we go through those planning exercises and map out where do we want the business to be at the end of the year, our reticular activating system, or our subconscious, right, is now paying attention all 24/7, right, trying to find ways to make us be successful and achieve those goals. So by not writing down our goals and having a plan in place, there's that famous quote of, a failure to plan is a plan to fail, right? And so I love what you're saying in terms of let's begin with the end in mind, Stephen Covey's principle, and map out where do we want the business to be, and then get quarterly plans in place to get there.
Yeah, that's
right. How long have you guys been doing that?
We've been doing that for probably 8 or 9 years. Again, we started it early, and I think it's changed over time a little bit. I think over the last 5 or 6 years, we've really gotten into a strong cadence that works for us. I think early on we implemented, you tweak, you change a little bit, but I think it's to me, I think it's been important to just not allow that to slip. Right? We've never missed a quarter of those meetings. We don't say, hey, we're too busy. We just, hey, we have to do this. This is the most important thing for our business. So prioritize it.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, that I would agree, that's the most important part, right? For every business, is have those plans in place and dedicate the time to those plans. So great job, Kevin. Next question here is, we know that business success doesn't happen in isolation. So tell us about a challenge that you've had during the years, that a fellow business owner came alongside you to help you get through it.
Yeah, I think for us, COVID was really one of the biggest challenges that we faced, and we've had a lot of them over the years, but I think that one was an interesting one. And a lot of it was because, you think about our business. I talked about, taking care of patients at that time, facilities, clinics, doctors, they weren't letting anyone in. And so it was, hey, hold on. We're scared. We don't know what's going on. We can't let anybody in the facilities. It was almost like a grinding to a halt. And I think that, one of the things that one of my business partners and our CEO is really good at is focusing on, hey, how do we push through this? Right? We're not going to take a step back, and we're not going to wait, and we're not going to see what happens. We are going to attack the problem, and we're going to push through this. And he was the first one that said, hey guys, we got to push through this. And then it was, as we collaborated as a group, we started talking about, okay, what's behind it? Because I think that's the biggest challenge we had, was people saying, well, we're going to push through, but how do we overcome the objections of, hey, we're not seeing any patients, we're not doing this. And it just went back to, hey, what are we trying to accomplish? Right? We have patients that if they don't get equipment, they are going to end up in a facility. And at the time of COVID starting, it was, hey, that's the worst place you want to be. And so how do we explain that? How do we communicate that? How do we make sure that, one, we can get into those facilities and explain to them why it's so important for them to continue fighting this, to take care of patients that otherwise are going to either, one, they're going to increase their level of falls because they don't have mobility equipment. Their wounds are going to get worse because they're bed bound and they're not able to move around and weight shift, or they're going to have to go into a facility. And all three of those options are terrible for them. Right. And our CEO was really just, really adamant about push through. Let's come up with a solution. And so it was, hey, that's the solution for how do we fight through that and communicate to make sure we keep the business moving. But then we also started really talking through and coming up with, how do we come up with a solution to, decrease the level of safety concerns, right? And so one of the things that we did, and we're really big on technology innovation, is, we're pulling our CTO in and saying, hey, what can we do to reduce the level of I guess proximity from our employees to patients, right? And so we came up with a delivery system to where we developed all these videos that we could send out in advance, and the patients could view them, and that way they didn't have to have as much in-person instruction at time of delivery. And so we're constantly just innovating and coming up with ways to push through this. But it was all primed by our CEO, Patrick McGinley, who is just he is he's very smart. He's very, aggressive in the right way. Aggressive can sometimes have a negative connotation, but he's very energetic in the right way to say, hey, we're not going to sit back and just accept that somebody says no. It's, but it's not because of any reason besides what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to take care of patients. So how do we use that as the right motivation to come up with a solution? And it was really powerful for us. We didn't skip a beat during COVID because of that. And it just I think it really just set the pace for who we are as an organization, which is, hey, we're going to grind and we're going to come up with solutions. We're not going to allow anybody to tell us no, unless it's the right reason. But hey, we were right, and we took care of a lot of patients, and we were able to fight through it. So, just having people like that on our team and really just driving it and just working together, it was definitely a moment that I'm very proud of. But he's obviously, one of the biggest reasons that we're so successful is, his mindset and just pushing through in that way.
Mindset is so key. We have a terminology that we talk about above and below the point of power. So, folks who are below the point of power, go into blame, excuses, and denial and allow the whatever the circumstance is to control them. And COVID, to your point, is a great example where, unfortunately, a lot of people, kind of ducked their head in the sand and said, hey, there's nothing that we can do. And so we're just going to have to wait this out. And unfortunately, a lot of those businesses went out of business, versus above the point of power, taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility, right? And saying, hey, we've got to pivot, or we've got to do things differently. We've got to figure out a way to make it through this craziness. And to your point, the example you just shared is the folks who did that oftentimes came out of COVID in a much better position and a stronger position, right? Set themselves up to thrive coming out of the pandemic versus those who said, hey, we can't control anything. So that's awesome. I love the mindset. I love the we're going to figure this out mentality. And clearly that has put you guys in a much stronger position.
Yeah. And it's, the nice thing is it's also given us some tools that we've used kind of post COVID. I mean, we're still in it, but I mean, using that technology and using things to kind of speed up the process and communicate better and more effectively. Like, it's amazing because now we're like, oh, well, now we have these ideas that are really useful, and we continue to use them because it just makes us better as a company, and it's more beneficial for the patients.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that sometimes a crisis can actually help us innovate into an area that we wouldn't have thought of without it.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Kevin, if you had to pick 3 people in your business journey that you're most grateful for being there as part of your business growth, who are those 3 people, and how did they help the business?
Yeah, I think, the 3 people for me are probably going to be just, 3 of my business partners. I have a handful of people that we've been in business with for a number of years, but, so our CEO, Patrick McGinley, our VP of sales, Keith Hawkins, and our VP of operations, Jared Rankin, the 4 of us have been working together for, over 10 years. And it's just, what's been nice is I think that it's the mindset of, no ego, and just, hey, we're all going to play our role, and we know our role, and we're going to do it as well as we can, and we're going to work together as a team. And just, I think that's been a really helpful thing. And just, the personalities and the mindset and the approach of working together and pushing each other, and also just supporting each other. We've all had, we work together a decade. Somebody's had something in their personal life or a challenge that they fought through, and just the level of support, I think, is really important. I think that's something that we don't probably talk about or think about enough, because people like to try and, they don't want to show vulnerability, and they want to keep their professional and personal lives separate. And I think that's one thing that, we've gotten to a really good space on, is we recognize when someone needs some support, outside of just the business, right? And so it's been really helpful and great that we have a team that focuses like that, and we've got a number of other folks on our team as well that really just, we've worked well so long and such a good methodology together that it's a nice place to be, and I think that's where we've been able to do this, because we do have the right people in the right positions. It's the old, get the right people on the bus and get them on the right seats, and I think that's something we have. And it's been nice because it's not just professional, it's also personal, and supporting each other, whenever there's a need in that regard as well.
Well, it can be very lonely at the top. And so having that network, right, of your partners who are also friends that you can talk to and right and share some of those challenges or inner thoughts or fears or whatever it is, right? It's important to be able to get that out, and we don't, sometimes we don't want to take that home and share it with our family because we don't want to burden them. So having that network at work is very healthy, and that's awesome that you guys have that.
Yeah, it is.
So Kevin, as you look to the next 3 to 5 years, what are the biggest challenges you guys are going to face to achieve your goals, and who are the types of people that you're going to need to know to help you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I think, for us, is we're continually, looking to grow our business, and we're looking to grow it the right way. We don't want to grow ourselves out of business. We're aggressive, but not overly risky. We take that very seriously. And so I think for us, and this, we've recognized this over the last couple of years, is, you get to a certain point in growth, and it really becomes about, having the right people and making sure that you have the right people in the right places, and you're constantly assessing it and figuring out what structure do we need to have in place. You grow 30% a year, every year, you get to a certain point, the number becomes big.
Yeah.
And now, our biggest challenge, honestly, is just, how do we have the right people, and how do we constantly focus on our structure? And I think some of it is, we're big on, I said, all the promotions we had last year, we're really big on using our bench, but we also have to bring in people from the outside that have the right experience, but also the right mindset. And I think that's one thing that, as I think about our biggest challenges, is when we bring people in from the outside, is integrating them into our culture and doing it in a way that works for both sides, and it takes time, and I think it takes patience. And I think it's interesting, because I've figured out how long it takes someone from the outside to come in and be successful. But these are people that were successful in their own right before coming to us. And so they come in and they're like, oh, I just, and I think they get frustrated because it's hard. And I'm sitting there saying, hey, pump the brakes. Like, I don't need you to save the world. I need you to learn our business, learn our people, learn our culture, integrate into our culture. And I think that's been a challenge. And so really it's, how do you make sure to get them in the right mindset to know, like, hey, come in, learn the business first.
Yeah.
That's what I think it's Kelley, right? Seek first to understand before seeking to be understood. And it's really hard for people to do that. And so I think for us, it comes down to, how do we grow the business? How do we find the right people? How do we also develop our teams internally? And so we've done a lot of focus on that as well, which is, what are the right tools our people need? We do a lot of internal leadership training. We're also looking at how do we have just general development tools and opportunities for employees, and so we've partnered with a couple of groups that are really good. So right now we're partnering with a group called HRD, and they are doing some development and leadership training for our emerging leaders. And it's finding the right groups to work with to make sure that we can continue to train, develop, and also just find the right talent. I think I'm not worried about, obviously there's a lot of external things you worry about, but you can't control some of those to a certain extent. But, I think our biggest challenge is just, if you're going to grow, you got to have good people. And how do you find them? How do you retain them? How do you support them? How do you develop them? That's our biggest challenge. And I think it will be going forward.
Fair enough. Yeah. You mentioned earlier getting the right people on the bus. I spent most of my career in family-owned companies, and I remember moving to a new company, and the CEO said to me, who was second generation owner, said, "Hey, Tim, you've probably read that book, The First 90 Days. I want you to forget everything you read, because we took the time during the interview process to make sure that you were the right person for the role. We don't need you to get points on the board and prove yourself to us. We need you to learn our culture, right? And find ways to leverage your experience into our culture in a way that it fits. Don't feel like you've got to prove yourself." And that was what you said earlier just reminded me of that. It's such a different and unique experience, right? And perspective, that it is hard for an outsider to slow down and realize that, hey, getting the right people on the bus is more important, right? You can't teach a cultural fit. You can teach skills. And so making sure that we bring in folks who we feel are the right cultural fit is going to be the long-term success of the business.
Yeah, that's right. And that's where, I think it's in this day and age, I think there's a lot of people that are looking to, they're looking for short success, right? Buy a company, flip it, sell it. There's a lot of private equity. There's a lot of money out there that people are looking to, buy and consolidate and acquire. And we acquire companies too. So I'm kind of talking out of both sides, but I think it's really important, for us, it's nice that, hey, we're in this for the long haul, right? We're not looking for short-term fixes. I'm constantly aware of burnout because of that too. But also, like, hey, I don't need you to be great in the first 6 months. I need you to be great for 6 years. And so
Right.
I'm willing to take some time to get you there to really have you impact the business long term.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, right, the culture that you have has led to the successes that you've had. And so to maintain that culture, right, it's going to be important. And so we don't want somebody to come in and think that they're going to shake up the culture, because we already know that is what's been making us successful.
Absolutely.
So Jim Rohn, one of my favorite authors, says we become the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So Kevin, as you think about that, is that something that makes you excited, something that makes you nervous? What's your standpoint on that?
I think it makes me excited. I'm fortunate. I've got a good group of people that I'm around. Obviously, business partners. I also have a number of people, that I spend time with. I'd say personally, but they're also very very astute business people, and just also just a similar mindset of doing things the right way, trying to be a good person, trying to take care of other people. And so I'm very fortunate that I'm surrounded by a lot of great people, and got a lot of good business people in my life, a lot of good friends who are also good business people, that kind of challenge you and keep you on your toes, and keep you humble. And so I'm excited. I'm very fortunate in that regard.
Do you have a favorite author, business author?
Actually I do, and I don't know why I'm blanking on his name real quick. I'm literally listening to his book right now, which is Leaders Eat Last. Simon Sinek. I really enjoy his stuff, and I think it's because I'm a psychology major for undergrad, and so a lot of his stuff is psychology based, and it's just interesting to hear him talk. And it's obviously he's a very intelligent guy, great author, great speaker. I really enjoy his stuff. I think it's just really spot on for what we're trying to do. And a lot of what he talks about is, people. And it's interesting because he talks a lot about people, but he also intermixes, military and, government, and how like the Marines do things and how the SEALs do things. And so it's interesting to see that, because it's all about how do you create a successful path. And so I would say he's right now my favorite author. I like a lot of different people, but right now, since that's what I'm reading / listening to, it's on front of mind, I guess.
Awesome. Last question here, Kevin. If something catastrophic happened in the business, who's the first person you'd call, and what would that conversation sound like?
The first person I would call would be my wife. She is my, you talk about business partner. She is my life partner. She is my rock. And, I think she's a great listener. She knows me. She understands the business because I talk about it to her. She's just a wonderful person. And I think she's also, just like I said, she's, you talk about surrounding yourself with people, and you talk about, not being self-made. She is absolutely somebody that's helped me, just get to where I am, and who I am. So, that would be my first call for sure. First and always.
Awesome. So Kevin, sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people who have helped you along the journey. If they were all here on the show today, what would you want to say to them?
Just thank you. I think, I really try and stay focused on being grateful. And I think that's really important to kind of start your day and recognize all the things that you have. And I think for me, when I think about things that I have, it's not material items, right? It's just people. It's the people in my life. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for, my family. I'm grateful, for the family that I grew up with. I'm grateful for the family I have now. I'm grateful for my friends. A lot of people that I think, no matter, how hard things can get at times, when you have people in your life, it's a lot easier to kind of deal with things and put them into perspective. And so, for me, it's just thank you. And it's just, being grateful. You talk about self-made. I mean, it's impossible. There's so many people that we rely on in our lives that we need, to connect with, to get through this thing. And so I'm very grateful. And I think the very short, simple answer to that question is just thank you.
Awesome. Kevin, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, Tim, thank you very much. I love what you're doing here. I think it's just such a great idea and a great concept, and it definitely needs to be talked about more. So thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So to everyone who tuned in, thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show with your host, Coach Tim Campsell. Be sure to help us spread the movement by liking the show and posting it on your social media. To join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Make sure to pay it forward, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.